There's a profound hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and we're living in a world of intellectual apostasy. We're living in a world where this is a reality on the ground. So the Prophet ﷺ says, يَأْتِ الشَّيْطَانُ أَحَدَكُمْ. The devil comes to you and he whispers in your ear. And he says, مَنْ خَلَقَ كَذَا وَمَنْ خَلَقَ كَذَا. Who created the sky? And you say, Allah. And he says, who created the earth? And you say, Allah. And then he says, who created the mountain? And you say, Allah. Then he comes to you and you say, وَمَنْ خَلَقَ رَبَّكَ. And who created your Lord? This is a categoric hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So he starts off, who created the skies? You respond. The earth, you respond. The mountains, you respond. And gradually he makes a niche and an opening and an infiltration and an indoctrination. And then he whispers in, who created your Lord? فَإِذَا بَلَغَهُ فَلْيَسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ وَلْيَنْتَهِ. When you see that thought set into your mind, then immediately seek refuge in Allah and desist from focusing on such a thought. فَلْيَنْتَهِ. The scholars say, desist. You cannot desist from the whisper because that's outside your control. That's how it's going to plague you and rock you and create anxiousness in you. But desist on magnifying it. Don't entertain it. Don't give it prominence. We move on. The second condition that creates a lot of depression in our life today is that every one of us at some point or the other have been violated, insulted, offended, betrayed by either a spouse or a child or a neighbor or a colleague. And that's the world in which we live. They say, asal wafaye to peech, asal wafaye to peet piche hoti hai. Warna samne to kutta bhi dum hilata hai. Asal wafaye to peet piche hoti hai. Warna samne to kutta bhi dum hilata hai. The real loyalty is behind my back. In my absence, were you faithful? Were you honest? Did you display integrity? But in my presence, if you claim loyalty, well, even an animal is loyal. Even a dog is faithful in my presence. Even an animal is loyal. But behind my back, in Arabic they say that al-wafa'u shajaratun jami'u thimariha tayyiba wa ziwajun bila wafa'in ayyamuhu qalila. That loyalty is a tree that only bears good fruit. And a relationship bereft and devoid of loyalty is short-lived. So another cause of our depression is I just cannot make peace what my spouse did to me. I cannot for the sake of me imagine how nasty, how obnoxious, how evil my in-laws were to me. Some point or the other, every human has been on the receiving end. What has the Quran got to offer us as the book of solace to undo that depression? And I promise this entire audience, if you take this one lesson from my entire address today, this is the greatest psychology that I have come across in all the books I have read, and after all, it's the book of Allah. So there's no need to express and elaborate that it would surpass every book of psychology in every regard. So here we have the tale and the narrative of the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. None could possibly be violated, offended, and insulted to the extent that he was violated by his own siblings, by his own family. They kicked him into the well to the extent his dad lost his vision. They fabricated a tale. Time moved on. The scholars have two views. The separation was either 40 years or 80 years. The body freezes, beginning to imagine the magnitude of this infliction. Comes the day where the secret is divulged and the reality is now unveiled, and the brothers meet one-on-one, and to take you direct to the tale and share the psychology and the message of the Quran, to move on. Don't stagnate. Don't let this bring you down. You yourself are responsible for your happiness. If you're waiting for someone else to make you happy, you will never be happy. You yourself are responsible for your happiness. If you're waiting for someone else to make you happy, you will never be happy. Understand that. So here they come to Yusuf alayhi salam, "Innaka la anta Yusuf," Your Majesty, Your Excellency, are you Yusuf himself? Right? I'm expediting and fast forwarding. The whole context needs to be appreciated. He says, "Ana Yusuf wa hadha akhi." Yep, indeed, I am Yusuf, and this is my brother. Now, they gripped by guilt, embarrassment, they are ashamed, they are humbled, they don't know what to do, they drop their heads in embarrassment. So he recalls the vision he had as a lad. He says, "هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل قد جعلها ربي حقا." I had seen a dream and a vision when I was a kid, and today Allah has made that vision come to fruition, that dream come to culmination, that theory come to materialization. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. I beg for your this is a phenomenal principle of psychology. When I read that, I literally was screaming with joy to say, this is what the Quran has to offer us, if only we can access it. He said, Allah's been very kind to me that He has brought my family from the village life into the city. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. Allah has released me from the cell and the jail. وَلَمْ يَذْكُرْ الْجُبَّ تَكَرُّمًا لِإِخْوَتِهِ. My word. When he highlights and magnifies the boon of Allah upon him, he says, my Lord has been gracious to me. He released me from the cell. Scholars of tafsir say, he deliberately did not highlight the bounty of Allah in which Allah released him from the well, simply because the word well itself was contentious. It would insinuate the crime of his siblings. So he opted not to reference the well even in a positive context. Why? Because you talk of well, it's synonymous to the treachery of his siblings. So he could move on, he could release, he could move on. He was not held back. And then he said, وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِّن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانِ فِيهِ تَلَطُّفٌ بِإِخْوَتِهِ. Then he said, Allah united us after the devil disunited us. So in that was a gentle release of a sentiment that my brothers are somewhat innocent. It was the devil that exploited everything. Those were the grand old days where you tapped your finger and you became inseparable friends till the end of time. Now you leave for Hajj. You are part of a common journey. You embrace each other at the precincts of the Kaaba. Yet hypocrisy doesn't leave either of the two. Those were the glory days where there was morning, there was mid-morning, there was early noon, there was mid-noon, there was late noon, then there was evening. Now it's morning and it's night. It's just darkness. It's just darkness, and there's nothing else. But here's the psychology, my brother and my sister. The Quran is a book of solace. He tells his entire siblings, لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. Listen, folks, I've closed the chapter. I've turned the page. We're done with the 80 years of atrocities. Let's move forward. Let's talk something else. Now, we can argue here till the cows come home that he was a prophet and he was a spiritual man and he had divine inspiration and he had that spiritual stamina. But let's not forget he remains a human and a mortal. And when he's a human and a mortal, he contends with emotions like you and I. Where does a man muster the courage to bury 80 years of atrocities by his own siblings in one breath without any hesitation, reservation, or apprehension? What's the thinking? What's the rationale? What's the motivation behind this? And that is precisely what I read in Bayanul Quran, again alluding to the psychology of the Quran. This is so profound. The scholars say, and Shakir Mani has made mention of it as well in Ruh al-Ma'ani, مَنْ نَظَرَ إِلَى الْخَلْقِ بِعَيْنِ الْحَقِّ لَمْ يَعْبَأْ بِمُخَالَفَتِهِمْ وَمَنْ نَظَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ بِعَيْنِهِ أفنى أيامه في مخاصمتهم ألا ترى إلى يوسف حين علم مجرى القضاء كيف عذر إخوته لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. The one who looks at the atrocities of fellow humans through the divine eye of the Almighty. That everything is in the control of the Almighty. He could have prevented this, but he did not prevent it. Hence, humans are no more than instruments to the execution of the greater plan of Allah in my favor. The one who views the wrong, the happenings, the atrocities, the inflictions of humans through the deeper eye, through the inner eye, with foresight and vision, then he has the courage to close the chapter and excuse people because he makes peace. My Lord could have prevented it, but my Lord allowed it to happen. So that means in this there was good for me. And the one who views the happenings of people with the limited, the narrow, the apparent, the outward eye, he remains caught up in arguing and counter-arguing, in implicating others and exonerating himself, and he makes no progress. He makes no progress. So he's stuck in this situation for his entire life. But why did you say this? But how could you do this? But I'll never pardon you. But that's nasty of you. But the one who rises above and goes beyond, he has the strength, the capacity to forgive. And that's the teachings of Islam.